The 1-2 Football Podcast. The voices of tomorrow, here today.
Is Dean Smith the man to take Aston Villa forward? I don't think so.
Why can't Everton break into the top four?
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will lead Manchester United to a Premier League title. He just needs time.
Hey guys, welcome back to the 1-2 Football Podcast. I'm Nathan. Today we are talking all about the Premier League relegation battle. I'm here with Ollie. Unfortunately, no Kieran this week, but here with Ollie. How are you?
Nah, it's not unfortunately. No jokes. I'm good. Got an interesting topic to discuss. One that I'm kind of shocked about if you looked at the start of the season, if I remember rightly, to how it first played out. But yeah, no, I'm good, and it's good to be here.
There's a few teams in the mix. I mean, we'll just get straight into it. We've got Norwich are down. Let's be honest. Norwich, especially after that loss to Leeds, Norwich are gone. I don't think it's worth bringing them up. Obviously, that's just how Norwich are. And I'm sure I actually feel bad for the Norwich fans to touch on them quickly because it's not their fault that they've got the reputation they have. That you have people calling for them to be banned from the league until they're ready. They're ready to come up. And I know a Norwich fan. I'd love to say that to wind them up. You aren't ready yet. You need to wait till you're ready, and then coming back to the Premier League. But it's unfortunate for them. I thought they were going to have a little revival under Dean Smith. I think they did for a bit, but
yeah, a little bit.
Unfortunately, just the strength of squad sort of told. And they're down.
That's the positive of Norwich, though, isn't it? Like, you can't be disappointed. You know exactly what you're getting yourself into. If any Norwich fans went into this season thinking, you know what, we're going to stay up, then they were delusional. So that's their fault for getting the hopes up. So I think as a Man United fan, I feel disappointment all the time. As a Norwich fan, it'd probably be quite nice, be exactly where you're expected to be.
No, I think well done. The one person I know, he's not happy about it. But I mean, it must be tiring knowing you're going up all the time. I'm sure Norwich probably will at least be up there next season. I mean, because it's not going to benefit them sticking around in the Championship either, because it's not like their squad's going to get better, but by sticking around in the second tier. But anyway, moving on from Norwich, you've got Watford, Leeds. Who's the other team? Watford, Leeds, Everton, and Burnley. Burnley. There you go. There's the four other teams. And I mean, with Brentford, they're fine. I think Brentford will be okay. I don't. It's worth kind of putting them in, and then the other team was Newcastle. But come on, I mean, they're all good. They've been absolutely brilliant since Eddie Howe's come in, and they've been able to make those signings. So, who should we start off with, Ollie? What team catches your eye first? Let's
go with the big obvious conversation now with Everton. I mean, they play later today for us, so when this comes out, it'll be a couple of days ago. But they're in a sticky situation, and Championship is crawling up on them. Like, things are closer than you expect, as the meme says, in your wind mirror. So, yeah, they should be scared, I think.
I kind of agree. We said earlier about just about one of the teams we were shocked about, and Everton would be that team. Because I remember I went to Brighton v Everton, and Everton were brilliant. They were compact, they were hard to beat, and I was left thinking, like, okay, their squad's not the best, but I think they might get top half this year. They might, they've got Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison, Alan Decore. It looked like you couldn't break them down. Their defence was okay, but it looked functional. Obviously, Pickford was coming off a brilliant Euros, but it just completely went to pot. I mean, the idea of Benitez coming in was never like the greatest idea ever, but I think obviously due to his history, and I think some Liverpool fans might be calling him Agent Benitez after what's been happening with Everton this season, because they got bad, and as soon as they hit that run of form, the bad run of form, they just couldn't recover from it. And then Frank Lampard's come in. And I like Frank Lampard. I think, there's potentially a good manager there. I love his interviews, but it's a rough situation for him because that team's bad. Like, it shouldn't be. On paper, it's not as bad, but like, they're just not very good. They're a bunch of not very good. It's not a very good team. I think it's the best thing you could say is it's just years and years of bad recruitment sort of put into one team, one issue. And I just can't say. I think they should stay up. But in my mind, thinking they've got loads of games in hand on Leeds, but I can't see them winning any football matches.
Yeah, I think what you just said there is a kind of, you can draw similarities between Everton and Manchester United. I think with the bad recruitment over the years, and it's just leading to the situation that they're in now. I mean, since Lampard has come in, they've lost 5 games, and this is in the Premier League. Obviously, outside they're in the FA Cup and whatever, but lost 5 Premier League games and only won 1. So the form has been diabolical under Lampard, and I'm just going to go straight in with my thoughts on Lampard here and what he's done. I think what he's done and the signs he's done would have been the right move if it was a summer transfer window. So we had a fresh season to go straight at it. But Lampard was hired with the club 4 points above relegation. They're now level on points with Watford, who are third from bottom. Granted, they've got, I think, 3 games in hand. But they're going backwards under Lampard. And I think it's because he's a bit out of depth, I think. He's never really been in... Well, firstly, he's never been in a Premier League relegation battle, let alone any relegation battle as a manager. So I think when you bring in someone like that, normally at this time of the season, if this happens, you bring in someone that, like a Sam Allardyce sort of figure that comes in and they try to stay the ship. They're known for getting people out of it. I'm not saying that's what they need to do, but I'm saying normally you bring in someone that's got the pedigree of getting people out as a short-term fix to then move on to someone like Lampard so he has a fresh base to start again in the summer. So I think Lampard's been chucked in the deep end here. He clearly said it and thought that he could do it himself, but I don't think he's the man to do it. I mean, they beat Leeds 3-0, but apart from that, they've only scored 1 goal in the rest of their games, which was a 3-1 against Newcastle, and they lost 2-0 to Southampton, 1-0 to Man City, which somehow looks to be their best result in terms of defeats, and you would have thought they'd get absolutely smashed. I mean, 5-0 to Spurs.
And they got robbed in that game, to be fair, against Man City.
Yeah, I was going to say, they held out quite long, but then a 1-0 defeat to Wolves, so it's not going great for Lampard. And I just feel like, I think he's the right guy at the wrong time, and I think that's going to look real bad for him, because I've been trying to think. We'll get to a bit later who we think are the 3 going down, but it's a tricky one.
It is a tough one for Lampard. I mean, his work with Derby was good. He got a squad to where they probably should have been in terms of where they finished and not winning the playoff finals. Unfortunately, they kind of just had a bad game. That can happen. That I know full well what it's like to lose a playoff final. I'm sure they do at Derby as well. But then at Chelsea, I mean, he built the foundation for this Chelsea team now. To be fair, no transfers. He came in, got them Champions League. And then, when the players started coming in, I don't know what it was. I think he just struggled to get them going again. They struggled with defending. They weren't really necessarily, they weren't a very good team for the players they had. And Lampard's never necessarily been a fixer of defences. It's not really been his thing. So to come into the team where their number one problem is defending, they can't defend. They've got 4 bad defenders across a back line, 5 if they play 5. And they can't defend. They're maybe not individually bad defenders, but as they're just, they're struggling at the minute. They've got a bad defence and a goalkeeper in Jordan Pickford, which he might be the most confusing goalkeeper I've ever seen in my life, because I've never seen someone play so good for one team, your country, and then play so poorly for Everton. I've never really been impressed by Pickford at Everton, but the only reason I would keep him in the team for England is because he's so good there. But that's another discussion I'm sure we'll have at some point in terms of the England squad. So it's just a tough situation. I think Lampard maybe thought, it's Everton, but these players are good. I'll be able to get them up, not realising I mean, if you go to Goodison Park, obviously I've not been, but the atmosphere there, if they concede 1 goal, it gets so toxic because the Everton fans are just sick of it. And it put Everton in whips because they can't hire someone like Sam Allardyce. Because, I mean, they have done it. And they actually, I think they finished like 8th or something, Sam Allardyce, or like 10th or something, I can't remember. But Everton fans expect a good brand of football. They expect exciting football, something that they can get behind. They want to be, they expect to be in the top half. So the fact that they're 17th in the danger of going to Championship, the fan base is furious. I think no one hates Everton players more than Everton fans. They despise them. So, every game it's you're not fit to wear the shirt, you're not fit to wear the shirt. So for those reasons, as well as the incredible, I don't know if you've seen any of the stories, but the financial pressure on Everton to stay up is huge. Like, if they go down, this could be a real problem for them in terms of not exactly going bust, not like Derby, but in terms of not being able to function at the same level they were functioning on before. It's not like when Newcastle go down, they kind of just throw some money at it and go back up like they have. I don't think Everton wouldn't be in the situation to do that. And if they would, if they did that, there'd be a lot riding on that season. So there's a lot of pressure, not just on the pitch, but outside the pitch. And for someone like Lampard, and that squad to deal with, if you're not playing well and there's all this pressure on you, it's not going to make you play better. Like, especially if you're not a winner. Like, only winners really have that sort of thing when there's all the pressure on you and you deliver. A team like Everton, you're losing every week. You're getting told you're not fit to wear the shirt. There's pressure coming on you. Some of those players are better than 17th in the league, so they're thinking, I should go. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here in Liverpool. I want to leave. So, I I mean, again, get to it towards the end, everything's going down. But you know, Everton might be in the Championship next year, and that's crazy to think.
Yeah, I went before this podcast and I was just having a look at everything, working out who I think could go down, how many points I think they might pick up along the way. And I was just sat thinking, Everton, Championship, that's crazy. Like, that's unbelievable. I mean, Leeds as well, after what they had like the previous years. I mean, it's just all a bit mental. But going back to you just said about, you know, the players, and I think the same situation is, and I'm going to go back to touching on previously what I said is you look on the surface, when he came in on, I think it was transfer deadline day on the 31st of January, I think Lampard came in or something like that. When he came in, you looked at Lampard, promising young manager. You saw him bring in the likes of Dele Alli and Donny van de Beek, and you thought, you know what, this has got all the potential to be something really, really good and exciting here. But now you look at it and they're, you know, equal on points with Watford. Granted, they got 3 games in hand, but equal on points with Watford, something that they were 4 points ahead of or something around that previously. To Dele Alli and Donny van de Beek, both having the same stats of 6 games, 0 goals, 0 assists. And you think, was this really the smartest decision? To bring in number one, a manager that I said is out of his depth, I believe. And 2, bringing in 2 players. If you're in a relegation scrap and you're in that situation, they weren't in as bad situation as they are now when they brought in, but they're still in a pretty poor position in the league. You want to bring in a manager, and you also want to bring in players that can hit the ground running. Now, Dele Alli and Donny van de Beek don't fit that at all. They were both players outside of both of their teams, Man United and Tottenham, didn't really have game time under their belt. And so we're going to need time to warm up. And that is something that, you know, Everton don't have. They don't have time. They didn't have time. And I think it's really showing everyone that their decisions on the surface seem really well thought out. But really, it was dreadful decision-making to bring in 2 players that weren't really playing, to bring in a manager who had been out of management for, a year, but also had never been in this situation. So I think they just got it all wrong. I
Yeah.
I really do.
I think they also took too long to pull the trigger on Benitez as well. I mean, it was when it got to a point, and they let him bring in Mikalenko, and that was like, why? If you want to get rid of this manager, if you were close to doing it anyway, why are you letting him? And I'm sure Mikalenko's a decent player. My memory of seeing him play is already gone.
I mean, and the man that he replaced, didn't you? Why sell a player because he hates the manager?
Yeah.
Probably one of their best players.
When you're going to get rid of the...
Yeah, exactly. It makes no sense. It makes no sense, really.
But if we move on now, we move on to the 2 teams fighting Everton for that. Because, I mean, Leeds are in a whip. We'll get on to Leeds. But we'll start with Burnley. I mean, Burnley, I thought they were dead certs to go down. I've got to be honest. You know, I thought they might have even finished last while Norwich was going through that little mini revival. But they put a few performances together. They got a few points together, albeit they've not won in their last 3, not scored in their last 3. But I looked at their fixture list and they've got some decent games in there. Norwich, Watford, they've got to play them. And I think for me, Burnley, and I'm sure you might echo a similar sentiment, that it comes down to the form of one man, really, and that's Ruud Weghorst. If he can get firing, he can score some goals. Burnley might stay up because they, maybe not so much this season, but if you look at the amount of goals they've conceded, actually no, Burnley can defend. Burnley can that they, out of everyone they're dealing with, they've got the least amount of goals conceded with 38, so they can keep clean sheets.
I mean, Burnley have always been the team that's hard to break down. That's the thing with Burnley. They've always been sitting back, defend, and just hope they don't concede. So defensively, that's where they are. But like you just said about that one man that could keep them up here, I'm going to do, if Kieran was here, he would definitely be saying this because he loves to say this every single time we talk about it. But in the Premier League, if you've got a man that can score goals, then you're going to be okay. So if he can start scoring again, and Kieran, I just did that for you. You're still here in memory. If he can start scoring and finding that, I think they'll be fine. And I've got down here on my notes. I've got my note here, Burnley to be safe. Because I honestly do think they'll be okay. I think they're going to have a typical Burnley season where they look threatened with relegation and they pull it off at the last minute to end up being safe. But like you said, they've got to play Norwich. They've got to play Everton. They've got to play Watford and Newcastle, all the teams around them in the positions. And I do think they're good enough to pick off a point, if not 3 points, because Burnley are Burnley and I don't think they ever go down. So I honestly do think they will be okay.
Yeah, and it's quite nice about having Burnley around. I quite like Burnley being in the Premier League. And they're going in a bit of a different direction now. They were linked with a lot more foreign players than what they have been in previously. Obviously, Cornet's come in and been really good. So I think if Burnley do stay up, I don't think they're financially that strong. But if they can have like a little, not rebuild, but you can add in 3 or 4 players, then, they could get back to being sort of a lower mid-table, comfortable team in the league. They're not that far off it. I think with Burnley, they kind of that current team has kind of run past its time now, and they just need to keep pacing. But I mean, look, 2 games in hand on Watford and Leeds. They're only 1 point behind Watford. They're only 1 point behind Everton, and Everton only have 1 game in hand. And then, with Leeds, they're only 4 points behind. No, 5 points behind. Sorry, and with 2 games in hand. So if they win 2 games, then they'll be okay. I mean, albeit easier said than done. And Watford, on the other hand, I mean, Watford and Burnley, you can there's 2 similar people, I think, in charge in terms of relegation experience. We were speaking about that with Lampard, not a lot of relegation experience. A man who's managed them both Watford and Burnley, Sean Dyche, he knows what it's like to be in a relegation scrap. That's been sort of the majority of what he's been in since he's been at Burnley, aside from that season where they finished 7th. And then you've got Roy Hodgson, who just, out of all kind of the old school Premier League managers, the big Sands, Tony Pulis, all of them, so Roy Hodgson's the best of them. And he did it with Crystal Palace, where he laid the foundations for a team that is ready to get better, keeping them in the Premier League. Watford team isn't very good, but I like Roy Hodgson, and I think if he can get them tough to break down, tough to beat, they have a chance. They do really have a good chance.
Having a chance is the right way of putting it. I don't know if they can pull it off, but like I've said, the thing that Everton lack is the manager of a pedigree of someone that can, is used to this situation and has, the ability to pull them out of it. And these 2 clubs definitely have that. They're used to it. This is normal territory for them, really. And so if they're accustomed to it, so I think that they'll do okay. I think that Watford will be down. I think Watford and Norwich are my 2 guaranteed people to go down. And then you've got to talk about the Burnley, the Everton, and the Leeds, and who actually goes out of those 3, because one of them is going to join them. I think Brentford are fine. I'd be shocked if Brentford, joined them. But yeah, for me, Watford and Norwich are for me my favourites and my guaranteed 2 to go down. It's then finding out who will join them in that, because Leeds, what has happened? They're doing a Sheffield United, where they do really well, and then they go back. I'm pretty sure I said at the start of this season when we did our predictions, I can see Leeds doing a Sheffield United this season. And they're doing exactly that. But I've got a Leeds versus Everton to join the other 2. I think Burnley will be safe, like I said. I think they've just got it in them just to pull the way out. And like you said, they've got a couple of games in hand. If they win them or pick up points, then they'll slowly find themselves leaving the bottom 3. So for me, it's Leeds or Everton. And to think of either of them not being in the Premier League, it's weird.
It's weird how Leeds have established themselves so quickly, because, they only came up last 2 years ago. They've not been in the Prem for long, and they weren't in the Prem for a long time before that. So, sort of that, I say, we're kind of like Burnley. I like Leeds being in the Premier League because, that's a club with a lot of tradition. They've got great atmosphere. I think they've been horribly unlucky this season. With someone like Bielsa, it's very system-based, how you play. And while that certainly got exposed a bit, to not have Rafinha's probably their best attacking player, but to not have 2 of the spine of that team in terms of Calvin Phillips, who is probably the most important player that Leeds have in there, and then Patrick Bamford, who is so important, and mix that with some bad recruitment. I don't know who that's down to, whether that's down to Bielsa or the people above him, but they recruited poorly in terms of just not doing enough this season. So to deal with these injuries, they didn't have another striker. They've got Rodrigo, they've got Tyler Roberts. These aren't out-and-out strikers. Daniel James has been playing up there quite a lot. He's not an out-and-out striker. So they've been really messed around with injuries, but then that is also I can't think that's a con of Bielsa's system. You have to be insanely physically fit, and eventually that will catch up with you. The amount of sprints they do compared to anyone else, it is crazy. So Leeds have been horribly unlucky, but with Jesse Marsch coming in, the new manager, I can't say I know a whole lot about him. I know he didn't have the easiest time at Leipzig. I don't think that was all down to him. Apparently, they let go of a few of their key players, had problems with injuries, and it just didn't go his way. I think sometimes that just happens in management. But he did a fantastic job with Salzburg. And apparently, the Norwich game, I can't say I watched it, but I knew someone went there, and they said that Leeds should have won that game pretty convincingly. They just made it difficult for themselves. And then Leicester, they were excellent against Leicester. They were poor against I thought it was the game they lost in between that. I can't remember, but I know they were bad because I saw a lot of people criticising the manager after that. So
Aston Villa.
Leeds have more Aston Villa, yeah, they were bad against Aston Villa. They're in a tough position because they've played more games than most of the teams, and but they do have more points, and that's a good start. I mean, you know, it's as basic as it sounds. They have more points than the other teams. These other teams that are bad form have to win games to catch up with them, and that's not easy. So Leeds do have the advantage, but I don't know. I don't.
I think in my opinion. Well, Karen, what you were going to say, I'll jump in twice.
The Leeds have, out of all the teams in this battle, I actually think Leeds have one of the poorer teams in terms of just depth. But they don't have a lot of depth.
That's the opposite to what I was going to say. I was going to say if you look at not necessarily depth, but I wasn't going to say about depth. But I was going to say if I look at the strongest Everton team can put out and the strongest Leeds team that you can put out, I think I would favour the Leeds. Like starting 11, I really do. I mean, I think you've probably got better individual talents in terms of Everton with like Calvert-Lewin and stuff. So I think overall, I'd pick Leeds as a stronger team.
Yeah, I just think their squad's just weaker. It's not what it was in terms of again, Calvin Phillips is such a big miss. I can't. And the thing that what Leeds have, and this is it might be another simple statement. They have out of all the he's the best player out of the four. And that might help. I mean, his work for the winner against Norwich was excellent to give it along to Joe Goldhart, who might be someone that finds himself getting more opportunities. Although Patrick Bamford's back, I think Leeds to have a very weak squad, but if they can get the 11, which is a strong thing that they have, they still need a midfielder. I mean, I can't believe Leeds. It's been 4 years since Leeds signed an out-and-out midfielder. The only midfielder they've sort of bring in was Rodrigo, who came in originally as the guise of being a striker, but kind of hasn't turned out the way. It's a bit almost like Joel Linton, but not as successful. They're in. I don't think they'll go down. I think Leeds will be all right. I don't know. I think Leeds will be okay.
Who are you saying then? Burnley or you're left with Burnley or Everton?
I think it will be Norwich. I like Hodgson, but I do think Watford will go down. I think Hodgson will retire after that. I'm going Everton. I think Everton will go down. I can't see them winning the game.
I'm the exact same three. I think, like we said, I mean, Leeds are in a similar situation as Everton. I mean, I don't know much about the Leeds manager. I know that Leeds fans, quite a large portion of them, are a bit unhappy with the signing of him in the situation that they are, similar to what I think Everton probably are thinking now of Lampard not having the pedigree of manager that they require. But, I mean, Leeds... I just think they've got it in them. I think that they've just got a win on the back as well. I mean, most of these teams haven't got a win. Everton haven't got a win recently in the Premier League, and Leeds having that 3 points in the last game. Not only does it probably inspire a bit more form, but it also gives them the comfort that they know they've just had 3 points. So, I mean, yeah, I think Leeds stronger position already going into it. So I'm going to have to put them down. They're 50-50 for me, and the situation they're in currently with more points just gives them the edge, I believe. But I mean, three games in hand, Everton have. Everything could change.
Yeah, exactly. Everton win all them, and they'd be up there, comfortable with Newcastle. I mean, and look, Brentford and Newcastle aren't clear. Brentford 30 points. With the same amount of games. What Burnley win both their games, they're breathing down their necks. I mean, Brentford should be all right. Newcastle should be all right. But I think 35 points is the target. I think that's what you've got to try and get to. I think you'll be okay with 35. So, because it's not 40 anymore. People keep saying 40. It's not been 40 for a few years now. If it's 35, you get 35 points, you'll be okay. And this Premier League this year, everyone's been beating everyone. So there's not really been like a big thing in terms of big gaps. So you don't need 40.
The fixtures, I just want to touch on it. The fixtures for Everton, for Leeds, I would probably say is actually one of the hardest out of everyone that's down there. I mean, I've got them here. It's Wolves, Southampton and Watford, all teams that they can be picking up points. But then they go to Chelsea, or not go to Chelsea, but they play Chelsea. They play Crystal Palace, who, this season are doing really well. Man City, Arsenal, Brighton, and then Brentford, who I imagine Leeds are going to need to be picking up points against Brentford. But, I mean, that's probably one of the hardest finishes for these teams, because a lot of these teams play each other. The likes of Watford, they play most people around them, but for Leeds, they don't. They do play a lot of the teams that are doing quite well this season, and Wolves, they're doing quite well. Southampton have been doing pretty well. They were doing well anyway. They've hit a bit of a stumbling block recently, but Watford and Brentford, they're going to need to pick up, that needs to be 6 points. That needs to be 6 points for them.
Yeah, the thing is, the hope for Leeds and those sort of teams is when they play Brighton and Palace and Southampton, yeah, I mean, I know they're professionals, but you've got to just hope that they are on the beach. They're safe. They know what's going on. Season's ending. They start rotating. They start experimenting, and then Leeds fighting for their lives. I do think we'll see a couple shocks towards the end of the season. I think we always do. Those teams that are just hungry. I think we will see some big shocks, and maybe it's Everton going to be the team pulling them off. I don't know. Maybe it'll be Watford. Maybe it'll Burnley. But that's the relegation battle. You know, I'm glad that we have a relegation battle, and it's heating up on every end, every scale. Finally, we have races everywhere. We have title race. We've got the race for fourth. You know, we've got, I don't know if the Conference League race particularly counts, but there's something going on there. West Ham, Tottenham, Wolves, and we've got a relegation battle. And it's heating up in the Championship as well. Who's going to join them? So, I mean, this is what we love. This is what we love. So, just to confirm, Ollie, the 3 going down.
Yeah, I'm going to say Leeds, Watford, Norwich. I would say Man United if it was mathematically possible, but I think
saying Everton. Everton's staying up now. Everton's staying up.
No, Scott. Everton, Watford, Norwich. I got distracted by saying about Man United because I think that they could be relegated as well, to be fair. But, you know,
Everton, but that's another conversation.
Everton, Championship football next year, crazy, absolutely crazy.
It's going to be crazy.
You got to be loving it as a Liverpool fan. You know,
it's nice. It's nice to see. I like Lampard though, so it's not as easy.
But imagine the season as a Liverpool fan. What could be better? I mean, obviously, better would be them coming bottom of the Premier League. But what could be better if you win the title and Everton get relegated?
That would be brilliant. That would be good, and there's a chance of it happening genuinely. And I think Everton will go down as well. And I mean, that's everyone's football manager save guaranteed. Then if Everton goes down, because everyone will be playing as them trying to get back up and get into the Premier League. But, I mean, there's still so much to come. Could Everton go down? Could Leeds go down? I mean, you can even decide when we're told to confirm.
It's that close. Nobody knows. Maybe that's me. Maybe that's my subconscious telling me.
Yeah, head and heart.
You know, it's all up in the air. It's all to play for still. And that's crazy because, you know, we're in for a very good end of the season. And, you know, with finishing university for us, this is something to distract us with. So it's nice. It's nice.
And that wraps up the 1-2 Football podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to check us out on social media. 1-2 Football, 1-2 Football UK. Check out 12football.com for the latest articles from a growing list of contributors from around the world. We'll see you next week.